Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Nick, your favorite personal growth coach, and I am so excited. And then, I'm always excited to come on Wednesday to share with you and talk to my millennials out there as we talk about different sessions and aspects of adulting in my purpose. And tonight is like no other. We're going to have a great time. For those that may be watching for the first time, I always like to do an official introduction of myself for those that don't know me and maybe out there watching for the first time. Well, my name is Dr. Nicole Rankin. I'm the CEO of the Cole Academy of Personal Growth, and we are a training and development companies for students, helping students develop their soft skills, develop their leadership development, their self-awareness, personal growth, and communication skills. And not only working with students, but then working with the teachers and the educators that support them. So we are excited to help with the aspect of social emotional learning and provide training and support to develop our young leaders. And for those that don't know, that adulting in my purpose, we started this, when with time back of social distancing began during the beginning of the pandemic back in April. And it was just laid on my heart to do something because, like many business owners, we had to pivot. We had to find something new to do. And it was laid on my heart to take time and spend time with our young millennial leaders that are out there grinding, that are paving the way, trying to chart the course, trying to figure out life and this whole adulting thing. Because adulting is hard. And without some of the tools and strategies that we know now as adults, that you may not know, it can be a little bit difficult and challenging. So it was laid on my heart because I have a passion to help you to become the leaders that you have been created and destined to be. So each week we come with something new. We come with new strategies. We come with new tips to help you see, own, and achieve your dreams. And recently, what I decided to do is kind of break things up and do some new things. So we have some new segments that we're going to be rolling out. And last week, if you didn't watch last week, it was amazing. Our new segment, Millennials on the Move, we had Terrence Height and Bridget Joy of the Business and Brand, and they were phenomenal. So go ahead and check that video out and the replay on that. And tonight is a launch of our newest segment called Ask the Expert. So when I work with a lot of young people, I get the idea that they feel that they're not equipped, they're stuck, and there's so much information out there. There's so much things to learn. So the idea of Ask the Expert is to bring you people who can address their questions, right? And that is the goal, because we want to definitely equip you, inspire you, and empower you to be the leaders that you have called to be in the world. And there are people out here who love you, who want to help you, and to give you the things that you need and to be successful. And tonight is like no other. We have our first Ask the Expert guest, Angela Hooper-Menifield, and I'm going to bring her up and give her a proper introduction. Welcome, Angela, to Adulting in My Purpose.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nicole, for having me.
It is a pleasure. It was a pleasure. So, guys, let me tell you a little about Angela, and then we are going to delve in, because as I put this out there that we were doing this new segment, I told my millennials that I need questions. I need, what is it that you want to know from this expert? And we got a long list, right? We have a long list of questions. So it's going to be great. So Angela Hooper-Menifield, she is international facilitator, a certified teacher, keynote speaker, motivational speaker, a success coach. She is a DISC behavioral consultant, one of the co-founders of the Black Entrepreneurs Institute. She got a radio too, y'all. She's a radio talent with the International Business Growth Network. And then she has her own business, the owner of Hooper-Menifield Associates, LLC, guys. She's got it going on, right? You can tell she's doing some amazing things. She has 28 years experience in the federal sector, leading and managing over 4,000 employees. So she truly has a heart and a passion for helping others get unstuck and raise their leadership lid. She has certifications in HR and human resources with SHRM and HRCI, and she has a wealth of knowledge, wealth of education, does a lot of consulting with business owners, individuals, nonprofit organizations, and just so many, and truly helping teams, providing what they need or in a concierge experience to up level what they want in HR. So she's been trained all over the world. She's trained in Costa Rica. She's delivered TED Talks, guys. We have a true expert here. So we are excited. And not only is she doing all of that, she's married with her husband, Charles. She has two daughters, Tiffany and Amber, and then also is a grandparent of three. And then not only that, she is my sorority sister. So Delta Sigma Theta is in the house. So welcome, 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 Angela, to Adulting in a Purpose. We're so excited to have you.
I am excited to be here, Nicole. You know, I watch your show and I love what it is you're doing to support millennials. And as you know, my baby is a millennial, right? And so the work that you're doing has really helped me, even in how I frame some of the conversations that I have now. So yes, this is exciting. So millennials, let's jump on, share it with your friends, because let's talk about it.
That's right. So if you out there, let me know that you're watching. Say hello. We're just gonna jump into this. And this is such an important topic of human resources and millennials in the workplace. We talk about the shift that is happening in the workplace with millennials representing a large majority of the workforce now, and the challenges and obstacles that are happening and employees are facing in dealing and engaging with millennials. So we definitely wanted to have an expert on, because we know a lot of you out there, out there in the job market, trying to find a job, trying to navigate the whole job market space and the job searching, the resume writing, and all of that goes into this process. And we wanted to invite Angela to give some expertise in that area to help you out. So Angela, just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path and how you got started and where you are today.
Okay, so the Cliff Notes version is I went to college and actually majored in engineering. A lot of people don't know that. And after my first semester, because I only majored in engineering because I was good at math and science, and I realized I hated math and science. And so the lesson became really quick. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean that's what you need to do, right? Which is another reason why I love the adulting in my purpose. I wasn't too adult as an engineer, right? So I immediately switched my major over to business. And it was just like remarkable. I was like, okay, this is what I love. And so I got a bachelor's in business administration, took a job with the federal government. So full disclosure, took the job, was not interested in agriculture either, but I wanted to live in California. The vacancy was in California, so I took the job. My thinking was, I'll take this job, get to California, then get out there and find a job I really want. Well, somewhere along the way, I really started to like what I was doing. So not only did I not quit the job, I actually stayed there 28 and a half years. And I am the true example of an employee who worked their way up from the bottom. So in the federal sector, there are grades in federal government. And so I started at a GS5, which is the lowest grade you can be hired at in the professional ranks. And when I left, I was a DS15 step 10, which is the highest grade in step, right? So I literally am an example of you can work your way up from the bottom. And through those years, I think what really helped me was before I was married and had children or a child, I was willing to relocate. So I put myself in positions to advance. I worked hard, I kept my nose clean, but I took opportunities to volunteer, learn other skills, set myself apart. And so when interview time would come around, I could always nail it because I had not only the experience they were looking for, but other experience. And so I worked my way up. I loved what I did. But somewhere along the way, I decided that I wanted a little bit more. So I went back to school, earned a master's in public administration with a focus in human resources. And that's when things really started to click for me, because I could see in the federal sector that we were doing a lot of things, but to put it politely, it didn't make sense to me. like how we hired, how we promoted, how we advertised vacancies, recruitment. And so after I did that, I took on the responsibility of heading up all those HR components, even though they weren't my job. And so I still had my regular job, but then again, I own this. So complaints, grievances, discrimination, civil rights, all of those things became my responsibility. And that's when I really figured out what I love. And so when I felt like the content we had available wasn't sufficient, I started creating content. So now, I'm sitting in my office creating trainings, how to orientate people, how to hire, how to onboard, how to supervise, how to do OWCP claims. I mean, I'm designing and creating trainings because there was a skills gap. And in organizations, you have to do a needs assessment, where we are and where we want to be. And I said, well, if the government won't fill the needs, I'll fill it. And from there, I just began to love the speaking, teaching, training track. And so I knew then I wanted to do it for more than government. And so made a conscious decision in 2016 to leave federal service. And so I set myself a year to do it. And then in January of 2017, I left. And so this is my fourth year now, being full-time entrepreneur. And of course, you mentioned a lot of the things that we're doing together. We're partners in the Black Entrepreneurs Institute. I have my business as a speaker, trainer, coach. And I just love it. I mean, I wake up every day energetic and excited about what it is I'm doing and I'm able to contribute. And so tonight's no different, right? Because this is an exciting opportunity to share with you and your audience. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And we're excited to have you. I love your story because we talk about this when we talk about finding our purpose, finding our passion. And you just gave a story of your journey and how you wound up in a area really, just out of, wanting something and it turned into something else, how you worked your way up. And then you saw a problem. And guys, millennials, we talked about this before. What problem are you solving? She saw a problem even in her workspace, right? Saw a problem and then not only saw a problem, but decided to step up to be that answer and to answer that problem. So I love that. And that's just an testament of who you are and what you do. And it will help our young people to understand that you all have gifts, you have talents, and you can be the answer to a problem as well. So let's dive into this long laundry list of questions that I receive. I love them. I love them. I love them. I truly do. So the first question one of our young people asked was, what exactly does human resource entail?
So great question. And the simplified answer is literally almost everything. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about work, we think about from the beginning. So often when you hear about a job, there's an advertisement, whether that's on something like Indeed, LinkedIn, these different job websites, newspaper, but that's HR, recruitment. So that's the first touch. Then what is that process? The interviewing, the vetting of candidates. That's HR. The selection, the offer packages, what compensation will be. That's HR. Any type of benefits that an organization offers, how they onboard you, what happens when you don't do your job well, that disciplinary track, the employee handbooks, but everything that's associated around an employee from the time they first touch an organization, literally to their exit, even processing retirement papers, right? And then ensuring that they get paid their benefits and all that. All of those things are HR. But in addition to that, things such as corporate social responsibility within organizations. So when organizations make a conscious decision, like right now, we see all over the place, almost every day you pick up a newspaper or you turn on a TV, there's something on the ticker about some organization contributing money to support social justice initiatives. That's corporate social responsibility, because organizations know if they're on the wrong side of issues, people will boycott them. They won't support their products, right? So that's a part of it. There's global HR. A lot of companies have locations outside of the US. So how do you hire, recruit internationally, expatriates, employees that you have to now bring back to the US and reindoctrinate, training programs. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So HR is a little bit of everything. The laws on civil rights, equal employment, again, any and everything that we touch and we do, there's an HR component to it.
I love that. Thank you for being. A lot of times when we think of HR, it's just job searching and not understanding there's a whole conglomerate, a bigger picture to that. So one of my questions for you is that I know I deal with a lot of millennials and business owners, and I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in corporations as it relates to interaction with millennials?
So unfortunately, as we, and I say we because I'm guilty of it too, as we get older, a lot of times we get stuck in our ways, right? And so then this new employee shows up, I say bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fresh ideas, different perspective, and often it's not welcomed. And, we want people to see work and value it or deal with it the same way we did. And so to me, a perfect example was I remember when I was a young person at work, and a lot of the people that managed me were, at least a half a generation, if not a whole generation older, and wanting to take off because my child was sick. And my boss said to me, well, I never took off when my child was sick. And I just smiled and I said, well, if your wife was my wife, I wouldn't have to take off either, right? But it was a different generation. And that's what we're seeing right now with organizations with millennials. Millennials, as you do in your teaching and your work, they want to be connected to the mission. They want to know that the work that they're doing matters and it means something. And oftentimes, organizations' attitudes is just be glad you have a job. And that's not going to get the result that we want to get and maintain people. So I would say turnover is a big issue because millennials tend to not stay in jobs as long as, quote unquote, traditionalists did and or do. Generations, I'm Gen X and generations before me, it was get a job and stay there, hang your hat. And again, I stayed in one job for 28 years. I moved up in the organization, but it was one company. The likelihood of that happening now is not as great percentage-wise. And so understanding how to talk to, how to connect with and relate to millennials is a big problem that corporate America and organizations are having. And I had mentioned this to you previously, but pretty much almost every time I do a training, there are questions about, how do you motivate millennials? How do you help millennials stay focused? Because people see, quote unquote, millennials as the issue when I'm trying to tell them, no, maybe you're the issue, right? So it's because it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
But those are some of the things that I hear and see.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to get into you mentioned human resources and talked about interviews. So we had a lot of questions surrounding interviewing. And so I want to get into that. So one of the questions, and I'm going to group some of these questions. One was how best to prepare for an interview? And then somebody asked, what are some tips to nail an interview?
Okay, so I had to pull out my cheat sheet here, some things I had put together because I started this one pager about how to nail your interview and never finished it. But how to prepare for an interview, or which is also some of the common mistakes, is oftentimes people don't do the research, right? So they don't even know about the organization that they're interviewing with. And by showing up ill-prepared, they find themselves not taken as seriously. Another thing is appearance and dress. Whether we should or not, studies show that 70% of the interviewers make comments, whether that's pro or con, about the appearance of a person. Because we often translate, if they don't look, quote unquote, what we would define as professional, it can be interpreted as they're not taking this seriously, versus understanding that people have a different style. A common mistake is also not clearly defining what their assets are. Like, what are their skills, their talents, their strengths? Being able to hone in on those things. I tell people they should always do practice interviewing. And it's actually one of the things that I do with my clients, right? Prepare them, because people think they're prepared, but they're really not. But the other thing I would say is, if you're qualified, you really are. And what I mean by that is, there shouldn't be a question that comes across that table, that phone, that camera, that you don't have the answer to, whether it's direct experience or relevant experience. And so, what I mean by that, Nicole, is you could ask me, for instance, so Angela, tell me about your experience um, preparing taxes. Let's just say I was applying for a job. I've never professionally prepared taxes, but what I could say was, well, I've been financial secretary within my sorority, and what that experience has taught me, yada yada yada. So I bring to the conversation relevant experience that maybe isn't identical, but what the interviewer wants to know is, you either have some awareness of what it would take to do this job, where you've done something similar, and that you're teachable, right? Because let's be honest, when we're hiring people in their early 20s, we're really not expecting them to be qualified with the experience, but we need them to have knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's different than experience. So I want to encourage the millennials, yeah, apply for jobs that interest you, that you're passionate about, but bring to the interview the things that you do that are relatable to the core competencies of the vacancy.
I love that that you just said. If you are qualified, you really are. And
Mhm.
it brings that understanding of confidence, having that a level of confidence and self-awareness of what you do, who you are, and how you show up, even to an interview. And so you said dress, making sure you do your research, and then defining how you're going to be an asset. And I love that. So you're meaning that when we go in an interview and they ask your interview, ask the question, saying I don't know is not acceptable.
In general, I would say it isn't, unless you really don't know. So here's an example where it is okay to say I don't know.
Okay.
If they say, so, Nicole, we have a mentoring program that we have here in the city. Are you familiar with it, or do you know about it? Could tell me what you know about it. I would rather you say I don't know than to make up something and then embarrass yourself, because now you're not credible.
Hmm.
But when it comes to your experience, often, again, what I would say is, while I have never done that, let me tell you what I have done, right? So, take that question and phrase it around your relevant experience, because everybody has some experience. You volunteered, you've been a part of civic organizations. And if you haven't, then go get involved, right? Go get involved with something. All experience isn't paid experience. And I think that's a common mistake that people make. When we
Hmm.
talk to them about the things that they've done, they only speak about job related experience. If you was on the debate team in school, and someone asked you a question in an interview about, tell me about your ability, give presentations and speak, well, you can either say, well, I haven't done that, or you can say, well, while I haven't had a job that required me to give presentations, when I was in college or high school, I was a member of the debate team. So as such, I spoke in front of crowds as large as yada, yada, yada. I did the announcements in church. Whatever you did, right? You
Hmm.
have public speaking experience. So think about yourself in totality when you're trying to sell yourself. And for the record, in the interview, this is a selling process, and this goes both ways. I think often we're so anxious about the fact that we're trying to sell ourselves that we lose the awareness that they're there to sell their company too. You have a choice. Even if they offer you the job, you don't have to accept it. And so you should also show up to the interview with questions. This is a vetting process. And what we both should walk away from that interview with is the awareness as to whether or not we're a good fit.
I like that. And that was one of the questions that was asked. Then you brought it up. So, one of the questions that was posed was, what kind of questions should you ask in an interview?
So while there are no specific questions that you should ask, I would say per se, I think you need to think about what's important to you. So for instance, now here's what I also know. So I'm going to say this with a caveat. So if flexibility in a schedule is important to you, then I would ask a question, but I would ask it in a way that doesn't seem like that's what I'm demanding. So for instance, I wouldn't say, well, can I come to work late sometimes because on Tuesdays, I have to do yada, yada, yada. And I've had people do stuff like that.
Wow.
But instead, I would say, so what type of alternate work schedules might your organization have, right? So an alternate work schedule could suggest they do 4-10s, 5-4-9, flex schedules. You can come early, leave early, and vice versa. But that's a work-related type terminology that sounds appropriate versus can I leave early sometimes? Oftentimes I think asking about what the career trajectory is. So, what would a day in my life as a, accountant look like here? At the Cole, leadership institute, right? But asking questions like, what does that look like? What's your turnover statistics? Was someone in this job prior to me? If so, where are they now? Did they leave the organization or have they been promoted? Like, you want to know, like, how long was your predecessor in the job? Because if the organization has a lot of turnover, guess what that's telling you? People don't stay here long. Or if the job has been vacant for a long time, I would be curious to who's been doing it, because, not that you still shouldn't take the job, but will there be an angry coworker who thought they were in line for the job because you gave them all the duties and then you didn't promote them? So those are some things. I usually don't ask. I think we typically don't ask about pay. And I know a lot of times people want to do that. But usually that's negotiated once they've made a decision you're the right person. And if you're really the right person, typically pay is negotiable.
That's great, because that was actually another one of our questions. One of our young people wanted to know, at what point during the interview process is asking about compensation appropriate?
I would say after offers made. Because for some people, and again, it necessarily shouldn't be that way, but they get turned off when people start asking about money too early in the process. They're like, well, we haven't even decided if we like you yet. Why are you asking us how much we're going to pay you, right? Typically announcements announce a range. Oftentimes they'll ask you for your salary history or your range. So, do your research, find out what's the average for that position, and then also low end, high end, because if you don't have any experience, you don't walk in the door asking for the number on the high end. You start at the average, somewhere at the average and maybe a little lower, but then with your range, you still give them a range. Don't give one number if they ask you for it. But yeah, I would say after an offer is made, I wouldn't talk about salary until then.
That's good. And that's good for our young people, because a lot of times, we have a few things that you spoke about. And I want to point out is that you talked about, not only do we need to know about the organization and what we can give the organization, but often what the organization can give to us. So that goes to tell me that even as young people, you got to have an idea of what is it that you want, right? Yes. What is it that you want? And this is why we talk about adulting in my purpose, and not just kind of shooting the breeze or just throwing that dart at the board and seeing what sticks. Being strategic and being intentional about choosing a career path or a direction, and really honing in on yourself as to, who you are. What are some things you like? Can you be disciplined and do a routine job 9 to 5? Or do you require, more? Do you want more flexibility? Knowing that about yourself and having that understanding. And like you said, we have so many experiences that we can draw from to understand those things about us. So that's what we talk about, young people, getting that self-awareness of knowing who you are. This is how you carve out that life of where you're truly adulting in your purpose. Because if you're going after a job that's totally out of alignment with who you are, your personality, but then you go after it anyway and get it, 9 times in 10, you're going to be miserable. And then you're going to be frustrated. And then you're going to get into that position where you're stuck and then wanting change. And that's where we have all the high turnovers. So all of that could be avoided when you having that understanding. And I love the fact that you brought that up and how important that is.
So,
So I just
Nicole,
wanted, yes.
you made me think about something though. So on the flip side, I would tell everybody, be prepared to be asked
Mm.
a couple of questions, such as, tell me something about yourself. Everybody's that standard. And they mean you in totality. So we get everything from, oh, I was born, and then they give you a life story version. They want it crisp, they want it concise, right?
Mhm.
But the other thing they're going to ask is typically, tell your strengths, like what are your strengths? And they always want to know your weaknesses. People who show up in an interview unable to answer that question, I'm always like, don't you know the areas that you could probably grow in?
Mm.
Now, in response to that, I would never say, well, I have my weakness is. I would say, well, area that I would like to continue to grow in is, or if I describe it as a weakness, it's really a strength. So here's one I really like to say when people ask me that question. So one of my weaknesses or areas that I need to grow in is my inability to not always want to get everything right.
Mm.
Sometimes my desire for perfection, gets in my way, and it causes me frustration because I'm probably harder on myself than other people are. So now think about it. You're a potential employer and you're sitting there listening to me, and I'm a young person. I'm telling you how I so want to get it right and do it. Even though I said it was a weakness, you sitting there smiling like, yeah, I like them because they want to
Mhm.
do a good job, right? So even when you phrase your quote unquote weakness, phrase it in a way that shows you in a positive light. But don't also sometimes they'll say rate yourself in these areas. Don't misrate yourself. Don't say you're a 10 at speaking and you can't put two words together, right?
Absolutely. I look, guys. I hope you guys are taking notes. For those that are in the job market, we had the research showed that we had the largest graduation 2020 of college graduate this year. Now they're out looking for a job in the job market, wondering what's going on. You guys are getting the goods here and learning how to prepare yourself for the job market and what you're looking for. So, thinking about the time that we're in now, we are in the midst of a global pandemic.
Yes.
What some of our young people wanted to know was how does one successfully navigate the job market during this pandemic, during COVID-19?
Well, right now, I tell everybody that's on the job market that I talk to, you really have to set yourself apart right now. Because guess what? It's kind of like the housing market right now, and at least where I am, I live in the Jersey, New York area. I mean, houses are being bought for, 10, 20, $50,000 more than the asking price because it's a seller's market. Well, on the flip side, with the economy, because so many people are unemployed, there are people that are unemployed looking at the same job you may be looking to be hired in. Everybody from no experience and no qualifications to people who did this for 20 years for another company but got let go. So when you get yourself in the interview, you have one job, and that's to sell yourself. And even before the interview, right? Because oftentimes I've always felt like if I could get in the room, I'll get the job. Sometimes the hardest part is getting in the room. So that's, again, having a clear, crisp resume, speaking to your talents. Well, I may as well say it. No crazy email addresses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
emailed some people. I'm like, what's your email again?
I can remember the emails that we had back in the day.
But yeah, and if you want to keep that, fine, but get one that
Yeah.
just is your name at Gmail or with your initials or something that looks professional, because people, they know they have their pick of the litter, right? There are just so many people looking for jobs. So you have to set yourself apart. Again, being able to speak to your talents. There are so many qualified people that leave the interview without the job because they couldn't verbally articulate their strengths. And so the the interview is probably one of the most important things people will have. But again, having a clear resume, speaking to your experience. Again, all experience isn't work experience. Speaking
Mm,
to, the things that you did that are relatable to the job. So you got to have more than one version of your resume, right? Don't give me the version that speaks about your experience in customer service when the job you're applying for with me is a data entry person,
mm,
right? Not that you don't tell me that you have the job, but tweak what you tell me your strengths are. So have more than one version for the type of jobs that you're applying for, and that'll help you, potentially get in the room. But getting in the room is the hardest part right now, I would say, because it's a buyer's market.
mhm. I like that you said that it's not a one size fit all. All right. And
Hmm.
you have to set yourself apart. And speaking even to our young people who are coming out of college, they're fresh out of college, and
Hmm.
the majority of them don't have experience.
Hmm.
Right, so they may or may not had a work experience, and a lot of them, their resume is really short. They do a lot of coursework, and then now
Hmm.
coming out into the job market. So the idea that you're telling them to look back at some of their experiences that they can draw from, it's really enlightening, and I hope you guys are really getting this, because you may say, "Man, I don't have any experience." Hard, but you did, so you volunteered, you worked with, like you said, at the church. You've worked at, somewhere. You have these experiences that you can pull from, what we call these transferable skills, these transferable
Exactly.
soft skills, right? And that's what employers are looking for, that you have these experiences, even if you were babysitting, that's leadership, right?
That's
That's
right.
something that you can put, that's some part-time volunteer experience that you did, that shows leadership skills, that shows coordination. It's so many of those soft skills that their employers are looking for. I remember reading an article that said that there were 6 skills that employers are looking for, that a lot of the millennials are lacking, and
Hmm.
that is all was the so that those were the soft skills, the leadership skills, the problem solving skills, conflict resolution. So these are the things that they want to look for, guys. So think about your experiences, thinking about some of the things that you have done, and what skills you can pull out that will be transferable to the job that you're applying for. So
Definitely.
that's really important. Go
And
ahead.
going back to those leadership things, like, again, sororities, fraternities, civic
Yeah.
organizations, the campus choir, the, organization for, recycling, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever the thing that you were in, if you had any roles in that,
Mhm.
lead for Habitat Humanity, take one with kids building houses. A lot of these, young people have had these experiences, but like I said, but they don't talk about them in their interviews, and they don't put them on their resumes.
Hmm. That's good. So you guys, you're hearing it from the expert, guys. This is what you want. You guys are out there wondering why things are not happening. We're giving you the tools and strategies to help you up level the things that you have, so you can be equipped when you go before your interviewer, and go into the job market for your job searching. So now I want to talk about, because you mentioned having the resumes, and having making sure that your resumes are customizable to the job that you are going out for. So I had one question. Somebody said, "How do I get past the bots?" So we know we're in a tech a technical
Look,
world now. So we have these bots, and
so
go ahead. So speak to that.
wait a minute, just full transparency. So you sent me the questions. I was like, what's the box? I said, do they mean robot? I said, oh, I'm old, because I'm sitting there like, what's the box?
What's the bots? How do we get past the bots? So we know that, before, there might be layers before you actually get to a person. So are there any tips or strategies that they can talk about to get past the bots?
I would say it's hard, and especially now, right? Because so many organizations, they're not in person. Like right
Hmm.
now, the ability to touch and connect is really low, and so we
Hmm.
all have to work a little extra hard So what I would suggest as something you could do now is figure out still who has networking events, right?
Mm.
Network. And I think that was something nobody taught me to do when I was younger. How to really network and go to events and meet people, not with trying to get something, you're just trying to build relationships because you never know who you're talking to, who they know, who they may find out something from, and they will refer you. They will say, "Hey, people want to help people, and people help people. The like, trust, and know thing is even true there, right? But sometimes you'll never get to meet these people because you're not in the same space with them. But I would encourage young people to start networking a lot sooner and not just networking with people who are their age. Go to networking events that are more
Mm.
professional. And again, get some kind of business card, Vista print. You can make it look, you can print them out yourself now. Go get the card stock from Office Depot, Office Max, or whatever. Print you a card out. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Your name, your phone number, your email. So that when somebody say, "Hey, do you have a card?" you can say yes. But and then do virtual cards right now for virtual networking. But I would just really encourage people to build relationships, because once you build a relationship, you can get in any door.
Mm.
I remember when I first moved to Missouri, I was just like, okay, how come I can't meet anybody? I can't connect with anybody. And then I went to a training and I met a lady, and her name was Suzanne. I'll never forget her. She's one of the sweetest people. And I told her, I said, I need a connector. She said, I'm it. And when I tell you my life and my business turns around after meeting that one woman, because she literally
Mm.
knew everybody in the town. And
Mm.
so you got to build relationships.
I like that, and that goes with getting out the comfort zone. We talk a lot with millennials, and they're kind of in that comfort zone space. And we always say nothing great happens in your comfort zone. So yeah, I would have millennials. Well, I don't like talking to people. I'm not comfortable. Well, that's where things are going to happen, right? Getting out your comfort zone, and the more you do it, the more you get used to it. You get more comfortable doing that. But it's all about building relationships. I love that. Someone asked about um, what is the reasonable time frame to hear back from a recruiter after initial greeting interview?
So it varies by entity. So I can tell you if it's a government entity,
And we laugh because we both have been working for the government.
it's going to be, it could be anywhere for a month.
Yeah.
Um, and if they don't give you that information in the interview, actually ask. Like, that's another great question. So, what's the timeline for the decision? Because sometimes it's because maybe they're going to interview 8 to 10 candidates, and just because of scheduling everything, they're going to do half the interviews one week because we used to travel people in, and then the next week we would do some more. And then after we did them all, you got to score them all, then vet them, and then with the government, you have to tell the HR agency who you wanted to hire, and they could verify it was a legal hire, and you hadn't violated any hiring rules and skipped over any veterans, and it was just so much, and so it would
Mhm.
take sometimes over a month. So I would prepare people for that, because I didn't want them to go and find another job thinking we weren't interested, especially if I really liked them in the interview. I was like, just let me explain the hiring process for you. And then for some private sector entities, you may find out as soon as a day or two. So it
Mm.
really varies by industry, by sector, but that would be on my list of questions that I would ask in my interview if they don't volunteer that.
Okay, awesome. Another question that was posed was, does anyone actually read cover letters and thank you letters?
Yes. I know I did. Now, definitely thank you letters. People who sent me a thank you letter, and I'll be honest, and it shouldn't factor in, but when I would get the email, and if I got a handwritten one, that was
Mm.
even better than the email.
Okay.
I would say, man, like I'd want to go back and look at how I scored them, because I'd be like, maybe did I miss something? Because that's impressive. That little personal touch, which again goes back to the like, trust, and know. So yes, people do read them. Now, don't just be the bland, generic. Don't misspell our names. So there's some other things that people do because they're such in a hurry to try to do it. Be thoughtful with that.
Mhm.
Um, But email is okay, but handwritten is better.
Awesome. I
Uh,
like it.
yeah, but yeah, people do read. I mean, it does matter. It won't necessarily get you the job, but it kind of helps. Well, I mean, because by law, the evaluation criteria for a vacancy announcement has to be based on the qualifications of the job, and a thank you letter is not one of those qualifications.
Yeah.
But it helps us because as a hiring official, I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for knowledge, skills, and abilities,
Mhm.
not necessarily experience. I need to know you're coachable, but I'm also looking for fit,
Mhm.
right? And when we say fit, we mean like if we're a laid back organization and we value our clients and that's really important to us and our mission. I want to bring people on the team that I think are going to take that same level of care and consideration with our clients, and especially as a business owner, because guess what? My business is on the line if you represent us poorly. I
Mhm.
mean, we all we have to do is turn on the news right now. Whenever somebody does something and it's on social media, people always find out where they work, right? They always find out where they work. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to see Minifield and Associates on the ticker.
Yeah.
Sarah, who worked for Minifield and Associates, was just accused of or just caught on film, da da da. So we want to know who you are, and
Mhm.
that tells us a little bit more about you.
Wow. I like that because that was one thing, and it's good to know that that's still best practices because that's one thing when I was younger and in the job market, that was something that a person told me: make sure you send a thank you note after your interview, and they said that I should do something in the interview that was memorable, and in that thank you letter bring that up again, so you're continuing putting that message in that person. So I'm glad to know that practice hasn't gone away, even in today. So again, young people, some things, although we're new and we have all this technology, some of the basic things and traditional things that we used to do, they still work, and they make a difference. So even just taking that step and taking the initiative just to write a hand letter to say thank you, will make a difference. I love that, and to know that's still valuable during
Wait,
this time. Yes.
so you said you were told to do something memorable. Another thing you can do is like take notes and remember something they said, right? Because
Hmm.
that even goes further, right? Like, so if you were to send me a thank you note and say, Angela, thank you so much for just telling me a little bit about your background and your journey with, company ABC, whatever,
Hmm.
because every interview is different. But if you listen, and I tell people take notes, and when the interviewers are asking you questions, it's okay to make bullets because oftentimes there are two-part questions. It may be like, so Nicole, tell me about a time when, have you ever had an experience when da 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 happened? And then tell me about a time you dealt with it. And then what was the outcome? So then you're like, oh, okay. And then the person starts talking, and guess what happens? They only answer part one of the question. And guess
Hmm.
what they put on my score sheet for the second part? A big zero.
Wow.
And I don't feel obligated to repeat the question. You didn't ask me to. And I'm just
Wow.
being really transparent, right? So write
Yeah.
or ask. Sometimes people will say, now, did I answer the whole question? Like they'll say it to us and then we'll say, well, actually you didn't. And then I'll tell you. But then because that's telling me your awareness is on the fact that this was the question, right? And it was a
Hmm.
two-parter or three-parter or whatever. So take notes.
That's good. That's good. Guys, you are getting some I don't know. I hope they are finding value in this for those that are out there in the job market that are looking, and searching and having trouble. You guys take this information, put it to work. As we're coming down to our time, I have a few questions that I want to address. One of the questions were, what should truly be highlighted on one's LinkedIn page to be noticed by a recruiter? So we know LinkedIn is very popular now.
Well, I'm definitely not a LinkedIn expert, so I'll throw
Mhm.
that out there. And there are
Mhm.
some courses out there that really speak to LinkedIn. But what I've seen is I pay attention to titles. how they describe themselves, and then also usually that first job or two. Because sometimes people have so much, and people, in a quick glance, they're just not reading all of that. So the other thing they're going to look at is like what kind of stuff, I hate to say it, but that you're posting and doing yourself on LinkedIn. And for some reason right now, I'm surprised that a lot of people don't have LinkedIn profiles that need jobs. But that is something that people look at. So yeah, I would say your title, your core experience, and if it's not work experience, what other experience can you speak to? And I would even say speak to it, say what you're looking for. It's okay to publicly say, hey, I'm looking to start working in the field of, because people pay attention to that.
All right. So as you were thinking, I just from my knowledge as well, because I know we're living in a social media heavy technology time. How important is your social media presence for for job market? Like, are there recruiters going through and searching your social media and seeing what you post? Because some people will like, well, my page is private, they can't find me. So talk to that. Yeah, I want to give them the truth so they're aware, because I've had young people say that to me. They'll post questionable things, and they'll tell me, well, my page is private and only my friends can see it. But I want the expert to talk to that.
What they don't also realize is, however, when someone comments on your post and their page is not private, their friends and people who can see them can see you. So Facebook's privacy is not as private, right? That's one thing to consider. But I think employers sometimes wonder, because we believe, whether it's accurate or not, that everybody has a social media presence. So if I can't see you, I'm wondering why I can't see you. So that's just something to think about.
That's deep. I didn't even think about that one, because a lot of times people will block it and say it's private, and that also sends a message, right?
Yeah, right. Because and there are some people who don't have a presence, but there's an assumption that young people have a presence. So if I can't see you, I'm gonna be like, really?
Okay. That's good to know. So young people on your social media pages, making sure that, knowing that people are watching and people are looking, and what you think is private, right? Just what you think is private is not all that private. So be mindful of what you put out there and what you're representing. And we're not saying that you can't do this or you can't do that, but again, it's about what you're projecting as you're wanting to be out in the marketplace, and wanting what people are wanting and seeing in you through all medias. Even before they get to meet you face to face, they may go to your social media, and although it may not be a criteria, people make judgments, and their perceptions are reality. So that's one thing that as you said that about LinkedIn, I thought about the other social media platforms and some things young people have said to me, and argued me down about why they shouldn't take some of the stuff down that I told them to take down.
Trust me, we have had that conversation even in my house.
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
She's like, well, I just liked it. I'm like, really?
Yes. So
just think about that.
Absolutely. So this has been so great. And I want to thank you for giving the young people the goods, guys. This is stuff that, people wish they knew as they're going in, and you are getting it. This is, people pay a lot of money for workshops and resources like this. And I hope you appreciate it. I know I thank you, and I value your time and value your knowledge that you are taking to share with our young people. My final question is, as we are talking about adulting in my purpose, what does adulting in my purpose mean to you?
To me, adulting in my purpose means number one, that I get to figure out what motivates me. When we talk about purpose, the most simple way I can describe it is everything else revolves around it. So it's like the sun. So your purpose is the sun in your life. And it really should bring light to it. And so when you adult in it, it means that you're growing into it. You're taking ownership of it. And you're deciding, what are my deal breakers? What are the things that are not going to be tolerable in my life? And what are the things do I want to welcome in my life, right? Because we can't make other people do other things or make things happen, but we get to choose what we welcome in our life. And so whether that's employment, relationships, or anything like that. So adulting in your purpose is you deciding what does that look like for you, owning it, and then welcoming those things that you desire. And doing so with integrity, authenticity, and in your voice, right? You don't have to be afraid or ashamed for what you feel and what you want. That's yours and that's yours only.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Angela, for coming on, spending some time with us on Adulting in My Purpose. It has truly been an amazing time. Again, so much value, so much golden nuggets that you have shared with our young people again. So I pray that they have taken notes, they'll watch the replay, they'll go back and use this as an assessment of how they are showing up for jobs and how they're preparing themselves for the job market. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, guys, that is all we have tonight. I'm so excited. Again, watch the replay. Like, share, hearts, do a watch party with all of your young people that are your friends that are looking. If you know somebody that's looking for a job and struggling, send them this link so they can have this information. Announcements again next week. We have another millennial on the Making Moves segment. We have some amazing guests that are coming on, guys. I'm so excited about this. So next week we have another Millennials Making Moves segment. Again, the course is open for registration. The online course, Adulting in My Purpose. Registration is open. So there goes the link. Check it out. Register if you are wanting to up level in your personal growth and development. And if you're feeling stuck and you're needing help and guidance, come on and invest in yourself. Now is the time to do this. And then also, if you have not gotten a copy of Adulting in My Purpose, the journal, it is available on Amazon.com. So make sure you go ahead and get the journal, go through the journal, take the course, and let us equip you, let us motivate you, let us inspire you to do, be, and have more, and so you can own your dreams. So that is all for tonight. Again, we'll meet back here next Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. You all have a wonderful evening and be blessed.